Welcome to What's Going On, the weekly podcast and videocast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of What's Going On. I'm Pastor Katie Rickey at First United Methodist Church here in Yankton, South Dakota, and I'm glad that you could join us. Today, I have a special guest joining me as well, and I just want to say welcome to Jane Gilmore for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you.
Before we dive in with Jane, I do just have kind of one big announcement that I want to just get out of the way, and that is that we are not going to be meeting in person again this Sunday. That's November 22nd. I know some of you probably listen to the podcast at a later date, but we are still going to be in our phase 1 online only, and our COVID task force will be meeting on the 23rd to reassess where we are. Some of the considerations that we have to deal with is if we don't have enough volunteers and key staff to be able to be in person, that's part of the reason that we go online. And right now the numbers are just kind of crazy. And so we want you to be safe. We want you to be following proper protocols and things like that so that we can continue to be the church and be as open as we can be. But just that note that for November 22nd, we are online again for this week. So that is just my one little announcement before we start visiting here with Jane. And so Jane, when I came here, your name came up to me so many times of things, of someone in the church who's just super active and super committed and just a wonderful person. And so I'm so glad that you decided to join me today for this podcast.
Well, thank you. I hope you don't believe everything you hear, but that's okay.
Well, so far it's proven to be true.
Okay.
So Jane, why don't you share a little bit about how long you've been at this church and like what brought you here and what you love about First Church?
My family and I moved to Yankton 43 years ago, and we had been involved in the church before we came, so the kids were sort of, looking forward to going to a church, and we came here. The kids and I were here before Tom was able to come. So anyways, we showed up one Sunday, and my daughter was just thrilled that near her was sitting a girl, a third grader who was the same age as she was. And so they met, and she got invited to spend a little time. And so all of a sudden, this was the church we came to from ever. So it just fit right for the kids, and that was probably really important, but we were comfortable here also.
Yeah, I think that's amazing and just so powerful. It's just those little things of welcoming and feeling, inviting someone, that makes a huge difference and makes people feel like this can be their home. And so I love that it was a little girl that brought you here and kept you here. I think that's awesome. So Jane, you are, I would say, probably a super volunteer in that you've gotten to have your hand in a variety of the ministries here at the church. What are some of the things that you've been involved in?
Well, I think when you have 4 kids in the Sunday school system, you end up being involved. So Mary Alice and I taught Sunday school together, I think, for 18 years. And when you teach with Mary Alice, you have a good time, and it's an easy road to walk. And then I started in 1995. The church bought a wheelchair van, and I happened to have moved my aunt here who was in the nursing home, so I started driving that, and until COVID hit, was still bringing people who need rides to church every Sunday. And that's another end of the spectrum, but it's been a real learning experience too with many of the elderly people. I don't consider myself elderly, but I was the same age as some. But anyways, it was I miss doing that now.
Well, I'm sure they miss it as well. I think that's been a group of our congregation that has been impacted so much by not being able to be in person, and just really long to have those connections again. And hopefully we can get back to that. And then currently you serve on the trustees.
Yeah. Well, the trustees, I feel, is somewhat of a good fit. in that I can pull weeds and trim trees and trim bushes, and I can't do any of the other jobs the trustees do, but Mary Holsworth came on board when I was telling her what fun we have. And anyways, it's been easy for me to fill that aspect of working on the outside grounds.
Well, you also were very helpful and getting, we just installed 2 new furnaces yesterday in the church that were not working to capacity. And so now we can feel confident that we're gonna have a warm building this winter. And I know that you were instrumental in making that happen. So I wanna give you credit where credit is due.
Thank you.
So in the sermon that I talked about this last week in Matthew 25 was the parable of the talents. And I talked a lot about using what you have and helping it to take what you have to be a blessing to others. And one of the ministries that we have that you've been very involved with in our church is our Angel Tree ministry. And I would say that this is one of those ministries that is a real tangible way for this church to be a blessing to someone else. And so I'm excited that we're still gonna do Angel Tree this year. It's gonna look probably just a little bit different, but I would love to have you share a little bit about what is Angel Tree and how it came about in our church, because different churches have it, but it benefits different places and different people. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit about the history of Angel Tree in our church.
I suppose the very beginning is that Tom, my husband, has worked on the Rosebud Reservation the first 20 years we were here. So he was going out there every week, and somehow I got involved a little too when Tree of Life got started out at on Rosebud. And so many people from church have gone out and helped with projects at Tree of Life. But one of the times when we were out there helping get Christmas ready for people on Rosebud, the director said to myself and probably whoever else was with us, would your church have any interest in doing a Christmas for people at Milks Camp? They are actually tribal members, but they don't live on the reservation, and we would like to have for them to have some sort of special Christmas event also. So it was brought up here at church, and people thought that sounded like a good idea. So rather than just gifts for 4-year-old boys or whatever, it seemed like the suggestion was that we try to make this personal, because we were dealing with, I'm going to say, approximately 80 kids. So what we have done in the past is we've written a name and an age on an angel that is put on our tree, and then delivered to Milks Camp. And most people wonder where Milks Camp is and what it is. And I must say I learned a few facts about this last night when I was asking Tom how to explain Milks Camp.
Yeah, because I've lived in South Dakota my whole life and I had never heard of it. So I'm glad that you're going to share.
Okay, well, this is my take on his helping me, was that at one time, the reservation went all the way to the Missouri River, so it was settled by Native people. And as settlers settled in and moved across the river and so forth, the reservation itself receded to Todd County. But there were some people who chose to stay where they were living and not move all the way to Mission, South Dakota area. So there was land that belonged to one of the sub-chiefs of the reservation, and his last name was Milk. So where some of the people settled in that area, and that was called Milks Camp. But they weren't confined to that area. They could choose to live in Bonesteel or Burke or any rural area they chose, and it's a very scattered group of people, but they still try to be supportive of each other. They do a Christmas potluck, and our gifts are given out at that time. And so it has become a very big event in many families and for the kids. And some of the people in our church have tried to get the same names every year and follow the kids from, say, 2 or a newborn baby up till. So at 18, when you're out of out of school, you sort of phase out of our individual gift program.
You graduate from it, maybe.
Graduate, yes. That sounds kinder than phase out.
So if I understand it right, it's so they're natives who it used to be reservation land way back, and when the reservation receded, they chose to stay where they were. So Milks Camp isn't just like a town; it's really kind of all of those who are part of the tribe, but who live outside of the tribal land in that general area, and they kind
Correct. Yes, it's referred to, or at least we refer to it that way. I'm not sure if the people who live there do it, but yes, the project, we refer to everybody, and it includes 4 school districts that these kids attend. So they are scattered pretty wide, but I think they are very supportive of each other, and probably also many are related to each other.
Yeah, so they're all connected, and you said that they come together for this Christmas event, and that's really where the gifts that this church supplies, that's where they get distributed.
Yes.
So I think that's an incredible thing, and so it started with Tree of Life, which is one of our Methodist mission outposts. And for them to say, here's a hole that no one is really meeting, and we want to make sure that we're trying to bless as many people as we can. And for this church to step up and say, we want to do that. We want to fill that hole. We want to meet the needs where they're not being met yet. I think that's a pretty incredible thing, and a pretty incredible ministry that we've been able to be a part of.
Yeah, it's been a really fun, not fun, maybe not the right word, but inspiring kind of event to be involved in. And people always or often ask, well, can you take pictures, or can we come? And we have never gone to the community dinner because we don't feel that they need somebody standing there watching them. So anyways, we deliver the gifts, and we are thanked gratefully, and we sort of feel that that's our participation.
Yeah, well, Jesus, talked about that, when we're doing something that if we do it for the thanks, then the thanks will be the reward. But if we do it in faith, knowing that God knows and God sees the blessing that is happening, that we build up our reward in heaven in that way. And so I think there is some, we have the desire. I wish I could see the look on the kids' face when they open my present, and because there's such joy in giving. But to trust that when we give, even if we don't get to see that it's still happening, and that love of Christ is still being shown to those families. I think that's really, really an incredible thing to get to be a part of. And so we've been doing this for how long in this church?
I can't remember for sure, but I know it's at least 12 to 15 years we've been going to Milks Camp, but I don't know for sure.
It just it's been a while. It's been
a while. And people always ask, well, when is the tree going up, or when are we this, or when are we that? But so, lots of people do remember and want to participate.
Yes, and so I think that's kind of the question is, if you want to be a part of this ministry, and probably many who are watching have been doing this for years already. We don't have the tree up yet. We're still working on gathering, because it is so personal. Oftentimes with angel trees, it tends not to be quite as personal with the names, and so this is kind of a unique aspect of the way that we've been able to do angel tree. But it also means that it just takes a little bit longer to get things kind of organized and get things gather the information, and then probably with COVID on top of it, we're just not ready yet for the names. And so what we're going to say is that when the angel tree goes up with the angels on it, that we're going to put it out through worship, through this podcast, through our email, through maybe our prayer chain even, so that people know when it's up, because we don't have a date just yet. It'll be before Christmas. I think that's one thing we could probably say confidently.
I hope so.
We'll get it before Christmas.
Yes.
So just wait in eager anticipation. And if you maybe if you're one of the people that has kind of been following a kid or child through this process, you can already be starting to pick up some items in anticipation for the box that you're going to give. And so if someone is interested in doing this and maybe haven't done it before, or it's been a while, what are some guidelines or suggestions for what would be good and helpful gifts because you're ranging from newborn to teenager. So, I mean, that's quite a range.
It is quite a range. And one of the guidelines we've tried to use is one item of clothing. And we suggest that the clothing be a larger size than the age of the child. Native children are often a little broader in build, and so you want something that's going to be usable and wearable for a while, and one toy or game kind of item. And then we offer the option, which for people who can't go shopping or don't have an idea what to get a 13-year-older or that sort of thing, if they would put $25 in an envelope, and it is very important that their angel be put in that envelope too, because each gift is only identified by the angel that is taped to it. So if somebody from the youth group or from the church is going to do the shopping, they need to have that angel with the name on it so that we can attach that to the gift. But the option of doing shopping for people has been a good fit for people who just aren't able to get out and shop that want to be a part of it.
Well, and I think maybe even this year in particular, especially those who is probably not that safe for them to, be out shopping. Yeah, I think that would be a great way is you could just send in a donation marked as Angel Tree, and then when we get the angels, we can just attach an angel to that one and go shopping for that. So probably that $25 mark is kind of where, if you're buying items or games or toys, to kind of, that's sort of the expected amount, or kind of, again, a sort of guideline, because you don't want one kid in a household to get something that's worth $5 and the other one to get something that's like $70. So to kind of keep it right around that $25 mark is probably.
Yes, that was one of the goals also, was to give people a range or an idea, and it's probably a little more challenging to get teenager items, 2 items, but it's not so important for teenagers maybe to have both items, but most people have been very creative and been able to do it. And we ask that the gifts be wrapped, but by being wrapped, they can also be put in a gift bag, and as long as nothing can fall out of the gift bag, and then the angel attached to the outside of it. And if you're not as, some of the gifts that show up are unbelievably beautiful, and if I wrap one, it's pretty iffy, so bags were a blessing for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on the gift bags. Anytime I try to wrap something, it never turns out the way that I think it should. Even a box somehow doesn't really work. So gift bags have always been a good option for sure. And so I would say that, if you're looking at wanting to just make the donation, that you can start bringing those donations in at any time, and we can have those set aside and earmarked so that when we have the names ready to go, we can be purchasing for those. Are there any other things that we should be mindful of? So whether or not the church is open, you're always going to be able to come in and pick up an angel or come in to drop off your gifts while our church hours are open. Hopefully we will be able to worship in person before Christmas, and so you'd also be able to bring them in on Sundays as well, or pick up an angel if we still have them, or when we have them available. But I just want to make that clear that you can drop them off at the church anytime during the week, as long as the church doors are open. So regardless if we're worshiping in person or not. So Is there anything else, Jane, that you think would be helpful for people to know about our angel tree?
Not thinking of anything right at the moment. People have always responded really well, and I guess probably the most challenging job is if there is an angel that isn't attached firmly to the package. Whose angel? What package does it belong to? So that would be a little reminder to make sure that angel is attached firmly.
And if you take an angel, make sure that you bring a present for it, because if you have that name, no one else can get that name. Or if you take an angel and realize that it's not going to work for you this year, just bring it back and we'll cover it. But we just don't want you to forget about it at home, or take it and not be able to do something with it, because that angel represents a child, and we want to bless as many children as we can this year. Well, Jane, I am so grateful to have you join me today, and I look forward to getting to be a part of the Angel Tree this year, and look forward to hearing about how it all works again, knowing that we have been a blessing to people right here in our own state who that's what God calls us to love, right? Our neighbors.
Right.
So I can't think of a better way to celebrate Christmas than to be a blessing. So
thank you for making this available for people to get involved.
Yes, and if there's anyone else who would like to be a guest on the podcast, I would love to have you. Just call the church office if there's something that is on your heart to be able to share with our church. We'd be glad to do that, and so just let us know. Let's close with a word of prayer. Loving and gracious God, I give you thanks for this day. I give you thanks for whoever is listening right now or watching this podcast. And I ask that you would work on their heart to spend this Christmas concerned more with how to be a blessing rather than how they are being blessed. Because God, we know that the greatest blessing is in giving. And so as we look to this Angel Tree ministry, God, we pray for all those who are working to gather those names and to gather that information. And God, we pray for the people of Milks Camp, that your love would be evident to them each and every day, and that what we do would just be a small part of the way in which they would know God's love in their lives. God, I thank you also for the people of First United Methodist who are going to take those names and who are going to buy those gifts and do it out of a sense of love and a sense of grace toward our neighbors. God, this coming week, we're going to talk about when Jesus says, when you do it for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you've done it for me. So let us consider this ministry of the Angel Tree to be a ministry of serving Christ in our state and in our community. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, thank you for joining me, and we hope that you have a wonderful week. God bless. Thank you for joining us on this episode of What's Going On. We'd love to have you join us for worship on Sundays at 8:30 or 11, either in person in our sanctuary with our safety protocols in place, or online on our website at www.firstumcyankton.org.